I'm leaving for an 11-day trip to Denver. Corporate Strategy Summit. I stood in our kitchen, coffee mug frozen halfway to my lips, watching my wife Emilia roll her suitcase toward the door. It was packed 3 days early. That wasn't like her. Another one? I said, trying to keep my voice steady. That's the third this quarter. She turned to face me, and something in her eyes had changed. Gone was the woman who used to apologize for work travel, who used to kiss me goodbye like she'd miss me. This woman looked at me like I was an obstacle. Franklin, I've been missing too many of these because of your insecurity, she said, her tone sharp and final. This time, whether you like it or not, I'm going. The words hit me like a slap. Not because she was traveling, she'd always traveled for work, but because of how she said it. Like she was already gone. Like our 9 years of marriage were a prison sentence she'd finally decided to escape. I noticed her suitcase had a luggage tag I'd never seen before. Bright red. Handwritten, not the printed corporate tags she usually used. My training as a forensic accountant kicked in without permission. The detail that doesn't fit is always the detail that matters. Okay, I said quietly. Be safe. She paused like she expected me to fight her. When I didn't, something flickered across her face. Relief? Disappointment? I couldn't tell anymore. I'll text you when I land, she said, softer now, almost guilty. Sure. She left without kissing me goodbye. I stood there in our kitchen, surrounded by the morning routine we'd built together over nearly a decade. Her coffee mug with the chipped handle she refused to replace, the grocery list on the fridge in her handwriting, the photo from our honeymoon in Maui stuck to the refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a pineapple. My father's voice echoed in my head, something he told me when I was 12, right before my mother left him. Son, when a woman stops fighting with you, she's already gone. I'd spent my whole adult life determined not to become my father, the man who screamed and raged and drove everyone away. But standing there, I wondered if my silence had driven Emilia away just as effectively. I didn't know yet that I was right to notice that luggage tag. I didn't know that within 24 hours, I'd see a message that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my marriage. And I definitely didn't know that I was about to do something I'd never done before. Follow my wife across the Pacific Ocean to discover a truth that would change both of our lives forever. Please, before I continue, kindly like, share and subscribe for more interesting videos. That night, Emilia left her iPad on the kitchen counter while she showered. I wasn't a snooping husband. In 9 years, I'd never gone through her phone, never checked her emails, never questioned where she was. My mother used to say trust was the foundation of everything, and even after she left my father, I believed her. But the iPad buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. The screen lit up, and I saw the preview of a text message before I could look away. Can't wait for Maui, babe. 11 days of just us. No husband. No lies. My hands started shaking. The coffee mug I was holding slipped, hit the counter, cracked cleanly in half. The sound seemed impossibly loud in the silence of our kitchen. I heard the shower still running upstairs. She couldn't hear me. I picked up the iPad. My thumbprint unlocked it. We'd always had each other's prints registered, another symbol of trust I'd been stupidly proud of. The message thread opened and I saw everything. Photos of her and a man I didn't recognize. 10, fit, younger than me by at least 5 years. They were kissing in one photo, his hand possessive on her waist. Hotel confirmations for a beachfront resort in Maui. Flight itineraries that matched her Denver trip dates exactly. Messages going back 3 months. Inside jokes, promises, explicit photos I had to scroll past because seeing them made my chest physically hurt. I told Franklin it's a work summit. He bought it completely. God, I can't wait to be free of this for 11 days. Her words. My wife's words about me. I thought about my father then, how he'd thrown furniture when he found out my mother was having an emotional affair with her co-worker. How he'd screamed and accused and made himself into the villain of his own story. How my mother had left not because she'd fallen out of love, but because his rage had made it impossible to stay. I took screenshots of everything. Every message, every photo, every confirmation number. My hands were steady now. I'd spent 6 years as a forensic accountant uncovering financial fraud, documenting deception. Evidence wasn't emotional. Evidence was just truth waiting to be organized. Then I deleted any trace that I'd viewed the messages. Placed the iPad exactly where she'd left it, screen dark, angle precise. The shower turned off upstairs. I swept the broken mug into the trash, put a new one in the drying rack so she wouldn't notice. Washed my hands. My wedding ring caught the light, gold, simple, engraved with our wedding date. Emilia came downstairs 20 minutes later in her pajamas, hair wrapped in a towel, looking more relaxed than she had in months. She picked up her iPad without glancing at it. "You okay?" she asked, noticing something in my face. "Yeah," I said. "Just tired." She kissed my cheek, a gesture so automatic it meant nothing, and headed to the bedroom. "I'm packing a few more things. Early flight tomorrow. Need help?" "No, I've got it." I stood alone in our kitchen, the same space where we'd cooked together when we were broke grad students, where she told me about both pregnancies, where I'd held her after both miscarriages. The pineapple magnet from our Maui honeymoon seemed to mock me now. She was going back to Maui. The place where she'd once told me I was the only man she'd ever need. With someone else. I pulled out my phone and called Marcus, my college buddy who worked in her building. He answered on the third ring. "Franklin? It's late, man. Everything okay?" "Quick question," I said, keeping my voice low. "Does Emilia's team have a Denver summit this month?" Silence. Then, "Denver? No, man. Travel budget's been frozen since August." "Why?" My throat tightened. "Just checking something." "Thanks." "Wait, actually, funny you mention Emilia. I saw her yesterday going into Davidson's office. Our boss. Heard her saying something about taking time off, but I had to run to a meeting. Didn't catch the details. So she'd lied to her boss too. Or used PTO and lied to me about the reason. Thanks, Marcus. I owe you one." I hung up and opened my laptop. Typed into the search bar, "Flights to Maui, November 7th. Her flight was at 6:45 a.m. Non-stop. United Airlines. I booked a seat on the same flight. Back of the plane where she'd never see me. Then I requested PTO from my firm, 11 days starting tomorrow. My supervisor approved it within an hour. I'd never taken emergency leave before in 6 years. In our bedroom, Emilia was humming while she packed. Actually humming. Happy. I watched her from the doorway, and something inside me made a decision I didn't fully understand yet. I wasn't going to scream at her. Wasn't going to beg or plead or become my father. I was going to follow her. And I was going to document everything. The airport was cold at 5 in the morning. I sat 3 gates away from Emilia's departure gate, baseball cap pulled low, sunglasses on even though the sun hadn't risen yet. I'd packed a single carry-on the night before while she slept, camera with a telephoto lens, a manila folder full of bank statements I'd printed, and the framed photo from our Maui honeymoon that usually sat on my nightstand. I didn't know why I'd packed that photo. Maybe I needed to remember who we used to be. Maybe I needed proof that what we had was once real. Emilia arrived at her gate at 6, rolling that bright red luggage tag behind her. She wore the sundress I'd bought her last birthday, the one she said made her feel beautiful. She looked radiant. Alive in a way I hadn't seen in years. Then he appeared. The boyfriend from the photo stepped up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, kissed her neck like he owned her. She leaned back into him, laughing at something he whispered. The intimacy of it, the casual comfort, made my stomach turn. I lifted my camera and zoomed in. Chad Brennan, according to the LinkedIn profile I'd found last night. Regional sales VP at some tech startup. 34 years old. And according to his Facebook profile that his wife Jessica kept public, married with 2 kids. So we were both being betrayed. The thought gave me no comfort. I watched them board together, their matching red luggage tags swinging side by side. Emilia glanced back once, a nervous flicker across her face like she sensed something wrong. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. She turned back and disappeared down the jetway. 20 minutes later, I boarded the same plane. Seat 32B, back row, next to a businessman who immediately put in earbuds and ignored me. Perfect. I could see Emilia's head 6 rows up, first class. Chad's arm was draped over her shoulder. She posted to Instagram while we taxied. A photo of her coffee cup with the caption, "Much needed work retreat hibiscus." The lie was so casual it made my chest ache. I thought about the first time I'd taken her to Maui 9 years ago. I'd won a spot at an economics conference and asked her to come with me, even though we'd only been dating 3 months. I was a broke teaching assistant and she was the brilliant grad student everyone wanted. I couldn't afford the fancy resort, so we stayed at a budget hotel and ate grocery store poke bowls on the beach. One night, we swam at sunset and I told her something I'd never told anyone. My parents' marriage destroyed them both. My dad's rage, my mom's affairs, the way they weaponized love. I promised myself I'd never let that happen to me. She'd kissed me then, tasted like salt water, and promise. "You're different, Franklin. You don't need to prove anything. You're just steady. Safe. Safe." I'd been so proud of that word then. Now I realized safe meant boring. Steady meant predictable. I was the man she came home to, not the man she chose. The plane landed in Maui 5 hours later. I waited until Emilia and Chad had collected their luggage and left before I grabbed my carry-on. I'd booked a modest hotel in Kihei, close enough to their luxury resort in Wailea but far enough that I wouldn't accidentally run into them. My phone buzzed as I climbed into a rental car. A text from Emilia: landed safe. Summit starts tomorrow. Miss you. I stared at those 2 words. Miss you. Did she? Or was guilt just another reflex she'd learned to perform? I typed back, good. Stay safe. No, I love you. No, miss you too. If she noticed the difference, she didn't say anything. I drove to my hotel, checked in, and immediately pulled out my laptop. Opened the folder of bank statements I'd been quietly compiling for the past 3 months. I'd noticed the irregularities back in August. Expensive dinners in cities where she claimed to be at conferences, hotel charges that didn't match her corporate travel bookings, cash withdrawals that made no sense. I told myself I was being paranoid. That my insecurity was the problem, not her behavior. But forensic accountants don't believe in coincidences. We believe in patterns. And Emilia's spending patterns told a story she thought I was too trusting to read. I highlighted every suspicious transaction in yellow. Documented dates and amounts. Cross-referenced them with her work calendar and her text messages to me. The affair had cost me, over $8,000 in the last 3 months alone. Marital funds. Joint account. She'd been financing her betrayal with money I'd earned tracking down other people's lies. The irony wasn't lost on me. My phone buzzed again. Emilia's Instagram story, a photo of a tropical drink, a slice of beach visible in the background. Paradise found palm tree. I screenshot it. Added it to the folder. Then I opened a new document and started typing. Not a confrontation. Not an angry letter. A timeline. A case file. The way I'd been trained. Because I'd learned something in 6 years of uncovering corporate fraud. Emotion clouds judgment, but evidence wins cases. And I was building a case. I followed them for 3 days, staying invisible. My forensic training made it easy: blend in with tourists, keep distance, document everything. Day 1, I photographed them at Wailea Beach, his hands on her like she belonged to him. She wore the white bikini from our honeymoon, and something inside me cracked watching her be that free with someone else. Day 2, I filmed them entering their hotel suite. Room 847. The video timestamp would matter later for the divorce attorney I'd already scheduled a Zoom call with. Day 3, I found Chad's LinkedIn and fell down a rabbit hole. Regional Sales VP. Married to Jessica Brennan. 2 kids, Emma 7 and Liam 5. His Facebook was public, full of family photos. Jessica looked tired in every picture, like she was holding their life together with sheer force of will, while Chad smiled for cameras and apparently flew to Hawaii with other men's wives. I saved Jessica's contact information. Didn't reach out yet. But I would. That night, I sat in my hotel room reviewing footage and thought about the babies Emilia and I had lost. The first miscarriage 3 years ago, 12 weeks in. We'd already told our families, already painted the nursery pale yellow because we wanted to be surprised. I'd held her in that hospital room while she sobbed into my chest, her body shaking with a grief I couldn't fix. "What if I'm broken?" she'd whispered. "You're not broken," I'd promised. "We're not broken." But we were. We just didn't know it yet. The second miscarriage came a year later. Earlier this time, 8 weeks. We hadn't told anyone. The grief was quieter but deeper, like a wound that wouldn't close. After that, Emilia pulled away. Stopped talking about trying again. Stopped talking about much of anything. She threw herself into work, took every travel opportunity. I threw myself into cases, worked late, convinced myself we just needed time. But time hadn't healed us. It had just given us space to become strangers. I realized now that she hadn't just given up on having children. She'd given up on us. And instead of fighting for what we had, I'd let her drift away, too afraid of becoming my explosive father to recognize that silence could be just as destructive as rage. My phone buzzed. "Emilia, hotel conference room has terrible Wi-Fi. Might be hard to reach tomorrow." More lies. Easier ones now. Me, no problem. Focus on work. I turned off my phone and pulled out the wedding photo I'd packed. We looked so young. So certain. I'd been 26, she'd been 25. We thought love was enough. I placed the photo face down in my suitcase and went to sleep planning my next move. Day 7. I'd been watching them for a week, documenting their paradise while living in my own private hell. That afternoon, I saw Chad alone at the hotel bar while Emilia was at the spa. This was my moment. I walked up, sat down 2 stools away, ordered a whiskey. Waited. Chad Brennan, right? I said casually, like I was making friendly tourist conversation. Tech sales? He looked up, confused. Yeah. Do I know you? No. I took a sip of my drink. But I know your wife, Jessica. And your kids, Emma and Liam. His face went white. Actually white, like blood draining in real time. I also know you're here with my wife, Emilia. The bartender kept polishing glasses, pretending not to hear. Chad's hand trembled around his beer. Look, man, I'm not here to fight you, I said, my voice calm and surgical. I'm here to give you a choice. And now. Tell Emilia it was a mistake. And I don't send Jessica the photos I've taken over the past week. I pulled out my phone, showed him the album. Him and Emilia at the beach. Entering the hotel room. Kissing at sunset. 73 photos total. Or, I continued, you keep going and I send Jessica everything tonight. Your choice. Chad stared at the photos, his breath coming faster. Jesus Christ. You have until tomorrow morning. If you're still with my wife after breakfast, Jessica gets an email with every photo, every receipt, every text message I can access. I stood up, left cash for my drink and walked away. My hands didn't shake until I got back to my rental car. Then the adrenaline hit and I had to grip the steering wheel to steady myself. I wasn't a confrontational person. I'd spent my whole life avoiding conflict, avoiding becoming my father. But this wasn't rage. This was strategy. That night, Chad told Emilia he couldn't do this anymore. I knew because I watched her stumble out of the resort lobby at 9 p.m., mascara running, phone pressed to her ear. She called someone, probably her sister, and I could hear her crying from across the parking lot. He just ended it. Said he couldn't leave his wife. I thought this was real. My wife. Crying over another man. While still wearing her wedding ring. I felt nothing. Or everything. I couldn't tell anymore. 2 hours later my phone rang. Emilia. Franklin. Her voice was small, broken. The summit got cancelled. Budget cuts. I'm coming home early. I miss you. Lie after lie after lie. Okay, I said. See you soon. I hung up and booked my flight home 2 days after hers. I needed time to meet with the attorney, finalize paperwork, prepare for what came next. Because I wasn't going home to forgive her. I was going home to end this. Emilia flew home the next day, alone and heartbroken. I flew home 2 days later with a folder full of evidence and a signed retainer agreement with a divorce attorney named Patricia Chin, who'd spent 30 years handling high-asset divorces. With this documentation, Patricia had said over Zoom, you'll get a very favorable settlement. But Mr. Franklin, are you absolutely sure? Some couples recover from affairs. I loved her, I'd said. But I can't be married to someone who sees me as an obstacle to her happiness. When I walked into our house, Emilia rushed to hug me. She smelled like our laundry detergent, familiar and wrong. I missed you so much, she said into my chest. I hugged her back, but my arms felt mechanical. Missed you too. Over dinner she tried. Really tried. Asked about my week, complimented the pasta I'd made, laughed at jokes that weren't funny. She was performing the role of wife, trying to climb back into a marriage she'd already abandoned. I was polite, distant, detached. She didn't notice. She was too lost in her own guilt and grief over Chad. Work was exhausting, she said, pushing food around her plate. I'm glad to be home. I bet. That night, I took off my wedding ring for the first time in 9 years. Placed it in my nightstand drawer, next to the gun my father had given me for home protection that I'd never loaded. Emilia was already asleep, facing away from me like she had for months. I lay awake thinking about my mother. She'd left when I was 12, couldn't take my father's explosions anymore. But before she left, she told me something I'd never forgotten. Your father thinks love means possession. It doesn't. Love means knowing when to let go. I'd been holding on to Emilia for years, terrified of losing her the way my father lost my mother. But she'd already gone. I'd just been too afraid to see it. The next morning I called Patricia. File the papers. Are you certain? Yes. For 2 weeks I went through the motions. Went to work. Came home. Had dinner with my wife. We existed in the same space but different universes. Emilia seemed lighter, like ending things with Chad had freed her from guilt. She didn't know I knew. Didn't know I'd been in Maui. Didn't know I'd documented everything. She thought we were recovering. I was just waiting for the right moment to detonate the truth. 3 weeks after Maui, I asked her a simple question over breakfast. Did anything happen in Denver? Emilia's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Coffee steamed between us. The kitchen was quiet except for the refrigerator humming. What do you mean? You seem different since you got back. I watched her face carefully, the way I'd learned to watch suspects during corporate fraud investigations. Looking for the micro-expression that revealed truth. She had a choice. Confess or double down. I'm just tired, she said, setting down her fork. Work's been stressful. Double down. Of course. Okay, I said quietly. She smiled, relieved, and changed the subject to weekend plans. We'd been talking about visiting her parents, maybe driving up to Portland. I nodded along, agreeing to plans I knew would never happen. That night, I packed a bag while she watched TV downstairs. Not everything. Just clothes, toiletries, my laptop. The essentials. I'd already rented a one-bedroom apartment across town. Signed a 6-month lease. Patricia had advised me to establish separate residence before filing. It made the divorce cleaner, less contentious. I took one last look at our bedroom. The pale yellow walls we'd painted together when we first bought the house. The photograph from our wedding day on her nightstand. The life we'd built that turned out to be made of lies and silence. Then I took off my wedding ring one final time and left it on the dresser, next to a manila envelope. Inside the envelope, divorce papers, filed and official. A USB drive labeled Maui. And a letter I'd written and rewritten 20 times until the words were exactly right. I didn't wait for her to find it. I just left. Drove to my new apartment, unpacked in silence, and waited for my phone to ring. It took 47 minutes. You followed me? Emilia's voice was shrill, disbelieving, angry. You fucking followed me to Maui? I sat in my new apartment, surrounded by boxes, and kept my voice level. I documented the truth. You lived the lie. We can fix this. I'll end things with. You already did. Chad went back to his wife. I made sure of it. Silence. Long and terrible. What did you do? Her voice was smaller now, scared. I gave him a choice. End it with you or I'd tell Jessica everything. He chose his family. You had no right. I had every right, Emilia. He's my wife's affair partner. You used our money I earned, to finance hotel rooms and flights and dinners with a married man. I had every right. I could hear her breathing, ragged and desperate. Franklin, please. I made a mistake. I was confused and lonely and... You were in Maui with him while I was home believing you were at a work summit. You posted on Instagram about a work retreat while kissing another man. You came home and lied to my face for 3 weeks. I'm sorry. She was crying now. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. Then why did you? The question hung between us. I genuinely wanted to know. I don't know, she whispered. After we lost the babies, after everything got so hard, I felt invisible. Like we were roommates, not lovers. Chad made me feel seen again. So you destroyed our marriage because you felt invisible? I'm not saying it was right. I'm saying I was hurting and I made a terrible choice and I'm sorry. Please, can we just talk about this face to face? No. Franklin. The papers are filed. My attorney will contact you. Our joint accounts have been split according to state law. The house is in both our names, so we'll need to decide whether to sell or if one of us wants to buy the other out. This is insane. You can't just... I can. And I am. My voice finally cracked then just slightly. I loved you, Emilia. I really did. But I can't be married to someone who gave up on us without telling me. Who chose excitement over commitment. Who saw me as the obstacle instead of the partner. I never thought of you as an obstacle. You told Chad I was. I pulled up the screenshot of her message. I told Franklin it's a work summit. He bought it completely. God, I can't wait to be free of this for 11 days. Your words. She made a sound like I'd punched her. You wanted to be free, I said quietly. Now you are. I hung up. She called back immediately. I didn't answer. She called 17 more times that night. I blocked her number after the 10th call, then unblocked it so her calls could go to voicemail. I wanted documentation of everything, even her desperation. The divorce took 4 months to finalize. Emilia fought it at first, hired her own attorney, talked about reconciliation and marriage counseling and second chances. But Patricia was good. Better than good. She presented the evidence methodically. The affair, the financial records, the lies to both me and her employer about the nature of the trip. Emilia's attorney advised her to settle. We split everything 50-50 except the retirement accounts, where I got 60% because I could prove she'd used marital funds to finance the affair. The house sold in 3 weeks. We each walked away with equity that hurt less than I expected. I never told Jessica Brennan about her husband's affair. Chad kept his promise, went back to his family, and apparently convinced Emilia to stay quiet too. I'd accomplished what I needed to without destroying another family in the process. Some nights I still thought about the man I could have become. My father's son, explosive, rageful, making my pain everyone else's problem. But I'd chosen differently. I'd chosen silence over rage, evidence over emotion, dignity over destruction. I didn't know if that made me strong or just conflict avoidant. Maybe it was both. Patricia called me on the day the divorce was finalized. It's done. You're officially single. Thank you. For everything. Can I give you some unsolicited advice, Franklin? Sure. The next time you fall in love, don't be so quiet. Your ex-wife was wrong to cheat. But she wasn't entirely wrong about the loneliness. Sometimes silence isn't strength. Sometimes it's just absence. I thought about that for a long time after we hung up. She was right. I'd been so afraid of becoming my father that I'd become a ghost instead. Present but not really there, steady but not passionate, safe but not alive. Emilia had been wrong to lie, wrong to cheat, wrong to handle her pain by destroying our marriage. But I'd been wrong too. Wrong to let us drift apart without fighting for connection. Wrong to assume silence was the same as peace. We'd both failed each other, just in different ways. 6 months after the divorce, I was sitting in a coffee shop near my apartment when I saw her. Emilia. She was with someone new, older this time, distinguished looking, laughing at something he said. She looked happy. Actually happy, not the performed version I'd seen toward the end of our marriage. She saw me too. Our eyes met across the crowded shop. She smiled, tentative and sad, and I smiled back. Then she turned away and I let her go. That night, I unpacked the last box in my apartment, the one I'd been avoiding for months. Inside was the framed photo from our Maui honeymoon, the one I'd taken with me on my revenge trip but never looked at. We were so young in that photo. 26 and 25, standing in the ocean at sunset, her arms around my neck, both of us laughing at something the photographer had said. We looked like people who believed love conquered everything. We'd been wrong. Love didn't conquer everything. But it had meant something. We'd meant something once. I placed the photo in a box labeled Past, and put it in the back of my closet, next to my wedding ring and the divorce papers I'd kept as a reminder. Then I pulled out my laptop and opened a dating app I downloaded but never used. Filled out a profile. Posted a recent photo where I was actually smiling. Under what I'm looking for, I wrote, someone who chooses honesty over comfort. Someone who fights with me instead of leaving. Someone who understands that love isn't just safety, it's also risk. I hesitated, then clicked submit. My phone buzzed almost immediately. A match. A woman named Sarah, 34, environmental lawyer, dog owner, recently divorced. Her first message, your profile says you're looking for someone who fights. Does that mean you're finally ready to stop running? I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, yeah, I think I am. We met for coffee 3 days later. She asked direct questions, called me out when I gave vague answers, laughed when I admitted I'd followed my ex-wife to Hawaii. That's either incredibly romantic or incredibly unhinged, she said. Maybe both. I can work with both. We dated for 8 months before I introduced her to my father. He was older now, mellower, going to therapy for his anger issues after his second divorce. She's good for you, he said after dinner. Pushes back. Your mother used to do that before I broke her spirit. I'm not going to break hers. No, he said quietly. You're not. You're better than I was. I wanted to argue, to say I'd made mistakes too, that I'd failed Emilia in my own quiet way. But maybe that was the point. Maybe becoming better wasn't about being perfect. Maybe it was about recognizing your failures and choosing to do better next time. 2 years after the divorce, I married Sarah in a small ceremony on the coast. 20 people, no speeches, just vows we wrote ourselves. When it was my turn, I looked at her and said, I promise to fight with you. To tell you when I'm hurting instead of going silent. To choose presence over safety. To love you loudly. She cried. So did I. Emilia sent a card. No message, just her signature. I appreciated that. Sarah and I bought a house with a yellow front door, her choice. We adopted a dog named Milo who destroyed furniture and made us laugh. We fought about dishes and money and whose family to visit for holidays, and every fight felt like proof we were actually present in our marriage. One night, Sarah found the box labeled Past while organizing the closet. What's this? She asked. I explained. My first wedding photo, my old wedding ring, the divorce papers from Emilia. Why do you keep it? To remember who I was. Who I don't want to become again. She held the photo, studying my younger face. You look scared in this picture. I was terrified of losing her. Terrified of becoming my father. So scared I forgot to actually be present. Are you scared now? I thought about it. Yeah, but differently. I'm scared I'll mess this up. Scared I'll hurt you. Scared we won't make it. Good, she said, putting the photo back in the box. Fear means you care. It's the absence of fear I'd worry about. She closed the box, put it back on the shelf, and took my hand. Come on. Milo destroyed another couch cushion. We need to decide if we're replacing the couch or the dog. The dog stays. Obviously the dog stays. I'm testing if you're paying attention. We laughed and went downstairs, and I realized something profound. Happiness wasn't the absence of pain. It was choosing someone worth hurting for. Someone worth fighting with. Someone worth showing up for every single day, even when it was hard. Emilia and I had loved each other. But we'd loved each other quietly, carefully, like we were afraid to break something already broken. Sarah and I loved each other loudly. Messily. With fights and forgiveness and full presence. And that made all the difference. 5 years after the divorce, I got a message from an unknown number. Franklin, this is Emilia. I know this is out of the blue. I'm getting married next month. Thomas, you probably saw us together a few years ago. I wanted you to know. And to say thank you. I showed Sarah the message. She read it, raised an eyebrow. Thank you for what? I don't know. Are you going to ask? I thought about it. Then typed, congratulations. Thank you for what? Her response came an hour later. For following me. For documenting everything. For not exploding the way I expected you to. You gave me the cleanest break possible. I was angry for a long time, but now I understand. You loved me enough to let me go without destroying me. Thomas is everything I need. Quiet when I need quiet, passionate when I need passion. I think I had to lose you to understand what I actually wanted. Anyway, I hope you're happy. I really do. I read it 3 times. Then I type back, I am happy. I hope you are too. I deleted her number after that. Not from anger, but from completion. We'd said everything that needed saying. That night, Sarah and I sat on our porch watching Milo chase fireflies in the yard. She was pregnant. 6 months, a girl we'd already named Claire. Do you ever regret it? She asked. Following Emilia. The divorce. All of it. No. Do you regret finding that box? Never. Your past made you who you are. I fell in love with who you are. I kissed her, tasting the wine we'd been sharing, feeling her hand on my chest where my heart was beating steady and sure. My father was wrong about a lot of things. But he was right about one. When a woman stops fighting with you, she's already gone. Emilia had stopped fighting years before Maui. I just hadn't noticed until it was too late. But Sarah fought. For us, with me beside me. Every single day. And that was worth everything I'd lost. Later that night, after Sarah was asleep, I took the box labeled past from the closet one final time. Looked at the young man in that wedding photo who was so afraid of becoming his father that he forgot to become himself. Then I put the box in the trash. Not from bitterness. From release. That version of me, silent, afraid, absent, was gone. And I didn't need the reminder anymore. I knew who I was now, a man who fought, who showed up, who loved loudly. A man who learned that the quietest revenge isn't walking away. It's becoming someone better. And letting the past finally rest.